Hello, friends. Welcome to Sky Dancer Podcast. Today's guest is a dear friend of mine and the Dakini artist extraordinary, Alima. Alima's artistic expressions span various mediums, including film, performance, ink, paint, and sculpture. Through her creative works, she undertakes to traverse cultural, generational, and even species boundaries in her search for the manifestations of Dakini. Viewing her works as potent amulet, she believes they possess the ability to unearth forgotten voices and revive invaluable wisdom, especially in our current times of uncertainty. Alima's artistic vision also encompasses the aspiration to tap into collective dreams transcending borders and biologies. She envisions a world where the vibrancy, fearlessness, and eternal nature of humanities are reflected in all its myriad forms. Through her art, she seeks to honor the fundamental role of our ancestors in shaping the natural and mystic realms, as well as our own place within the continuum of healing and creation. Now, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Alima. Hi, Alima.
Hello, Kendrella. How are you?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Thank you very much for coming. I'm so thrilled to introduce your artwork. See what unfolds.
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity to share.
Yes. I'm just curious, can you share a bit about your upbringing and how it has influenced your artistic journey?
Absolutely. Growing up, I lived in Central Asia, and there I was lucky enough to be able to experience a lot of different ways of creating art. My grandparents lived very close to the National Museum there. And
Mm.
so there were a lot of these beautiful archaeological artifacts from the craft traditions of the different nomadic groups that lived there. So, yeah, dating back all the way to classical antiquity times when they would make beautiful metal animals to wear on their body as ornament or put it even on the
Interesting.
horses.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So it was amazing to, always be surrounded by that culture. And now I'm part of like a very long lineage because of this achievements there. Yeah. Then I moved to the United Kingdom, and here, I
How
was
old
exposed to
at that time, Alima? When did
uh,
you move?
I moved when I was just turning 10 years old, so quite small.
Okay, so 10 years you are exposed to that different culture.
Yeah, and of course, kind of living in London, it's a meeting place of a lot of different
Right.
world cultures. So my world really opened up here, and always I was curious to be learning more, and I was lucky at school to be able to be challenged by my art teacher, who is also was like this wonderful spiritual person. She was the first person to
Oh.
show me some images of the Buddha and tell me about him. And then I remember even drawing a Buddha head that she had. That was a very lucky encounter that made me become more open to different kinds of art that I can make.
Yeah, that leads to my second question, second curiosity. How did you initially embarked on your artistic path journey? Was there a pivotal moment or any person who inspired you to pursue art?
Yeah, I grew up in a family that was also very interested in arts, and
Mm,
I grew up very close to my aunt, who's an artist, and we
that's
both kind of had the ability to learn to paint together from a teacher there. And then when I came to the UK as I advanced, I explored all the different types, of sculpture and film art and
right.
installation, even performance arts. But I would say my current art, my interest in kind of combining craft traditions that I learn about from my spiritual work and also kind of my own interpretation of these very ancient ways of expressing these images into a contemporary way came really during the pandemic when I was still attending the university and the first wave of COVID happened. So we were closed off from going to the studios at the university. And I had to create everything for my degree at home. And so that's when I became more interested in like small, detailed craft and
Mm-hmm.
making something just by myself without the need for space or audience, kind of trying to maybe communicate with the nature that I was seeing around me more as well in the art. Because that was the new collaborator that was there. So
Mm-hmm. Isn't it interesting? This pandemic allowed the artists to explore more. And also, I heard some technological advancement, like computer things, and somehow pandemic allowed those computer geeks to sit and develop their work. Interesting. So I'm so eager to hear more about your remarkable creation. And so could you walk through a few pieces among many, many amazing pieces, especially maybe Dakini pieces, and provide insight into their significance and inspiration? That'd be wonderful. The first artwork actually you offered me, that was Vajravarahi, that really gave me strong impression on your artwork and your capacity to express Dakinis. Could you start sharing those pieces with us?
of course, thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm very happy that you got to see this piece, and now I have shared this piece with you. So it makes me very grateful that I can show this to you as my kind teacher because yeah, I didn't know about Dakinis before I started exploring Dakini's Whisper in 2021 is when I first found the community. Then I started doing my own research and looking for the Dakinis in art and everywhere. This was a very exciting piece for me to create. It's based actually on a very small sculpture that somebody else created. It's a Nepali crafts. If you'd like, I can show you this.
Oh, that's a kind of thing. Yes,
Yes, kind of
tomorrow.
Tsatsa. So I would say very inspired by the black stone with just a few red highlights, how it kind of has this feeling of the Dakini emerging out of the darkness, out of this kind of cosmic sky. So I created this using handmade paper. I
Oh,
didn't make it
yeah.
myself. I was able to find a distributor. And then some traditional Japanese ink, an ink
Oh,
brush. Yes, I really like the thickness of the ink, how much it seeps into the cotton inside the paper and makes things just have this good dimension to it.
right. And different gradations. Some are very even dark black, but not just one plain black. So many different kind of colors and variations. Mm.
Absolutely. And then I was also able to add a little bit of red ink. And if you see, there's some like yellower details, like on the garment that is around the Dakini and
Mhm.
some on her skin as well. So that was actually, red tiger balm, the
Oh,
cream you
really?
use. Yes. I love
So
to use it at
maybe
home.
you can smell them. All sense doors open and can express that kidneys. And almost I feel like that red part is blood.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting how the red ink, I would completely agree, kind of clumped together over the
Mhm.
tiger balm, and it really does look like the zucchini is, kind
I
of
see. It's because
covered
of
in the
Tiger
blood.
Balm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you saying those skulls, did you say that you use the paintbrush?
I
The quite
mostly
the
use
details of the skulls.
I used a very thin brush for the smaller details and then a
I
more
see.
traditional ink brush for the kind of more contrast parts.
Yeah, I love this. It's my treasure.
Maybe you can tell me when you are reunited with it if it smells of tiger balm still.
Yeah, yeah. And again, because of your explanation and your inspiration, I heard this story about this piece. So now my visions expanded, how I view this or how I experience Vajravarahi. Yeah,
Very glad.
nice. Yeah, thank you.
So I can share another piece, another painted
Yes,
piece.
yes.
So this one is also of, well,
Ah,
Vajrayogini, this one was specifically, and that was my first time working with her imagery. It's a little bit different. It was very big, probably about a meter or a meter and a half in length.
wow. Okay.
I was creating this with a mixture of materials, starting with kind of a sketch where I was kind of thinking about this cutting tradition and the charnel ground and what this might appear like, almost like anatomical understanding of the metaphor here. And
Mm-hmm.
then with the oil, combining it with the ink was my kind of next intention on the actual canvas. And then I was adding quite a few details with silver leaf and actually using some ashes and charcoal and things like this from the fire that reminded me of the cremation ground as well. And applying this, with my hands, very tactile, very close relationship to the
Yeah,
materials was very
interesting.
exciting for me.
So are you saying, Arima, is this same piece? It's like a process of making or different pieces?
Yeah, this is all the same piece, so
I,
they are
I see.
showing you.
Mm-hmm. Like a different manifestation of Dakinis, evolution or whatever expression, so different. Each stage is very interesting and inspiring.
Thank you. It was very exciting for me to, also see how these materials would mix and dry because they are from different worlds, from these very technical paints to this very kind of rough, earthy materials. So I think in each stage it was like she's showing a different face. And then,
Mm-hmm.
completed, it became more dark like this in the end.
And also, you don't know what comes out as well, no? Like a surprise.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's such an important part of our path, the surprise, right?
Right, right. That's more like a dakini, dakini like. But I can see this third eye here. Wow. So this is the final product. I mean, final or the current
Yeah,
stage.
this is the current manifestation.
I see. So what's this made of? You said material.
So all the materials would be oil paint on canvas in combination with silver leaf. It's a very thin sheets of silver that you can apply onto most things. And then I added the ink, the charcoal from actually, not professionally made charcoal, but actually burnt for a very long time wood that I was
Hmm.
burning myself and then using onto this, and some ash that I was applying also by hand, and from incense and this kind of things. When I would finish burning it, I would kind of put it straight on the canvas while it was still sticky. And then to fix it all together, I applied a thin layer of glue varnish on top.
Interesting. Very earthy and kind of primitive or primordial, contemporary, and a combination of all this. Very interesting. When you approach a new project or try to make a piece, how do you decide on the medium or materials? You were saying like a charcoals or those glues or Can you elaborate a little bit of a connection between your concept and the materials or modalities you choose?
Absolutely. I would say this kind of started when I went on my first summer-long artist course here in one of the universities in London, where I kind of decided to challenge myself to not buy any new materials and just use whatever I found in the studio because there were about 20 different artists all working together. And so much is was not used and wasted and ended up in the bin or just left behind, or I could come up to someone and ask, "Hey, are you done using this? Maybe I can use the leftover." For that summer, it was very exciting for me to see what kind of work turns up by listening to these materials from the margins, I would say. And I still try to keep this a little bit where, of course, we were talking earlier about the pandemic and it was such a tragic time, but I was lucky enough to be healthy while I was isolating, but everything closed. So I just had my space, my apartment, and all the things that were left over there. So I also started just, getting boxes and painting on top of the cardboard and
Mm,
combining it with any
I
like
see.
earth I find in the gardens here in London. So it was, yeah, a nice time. And I would say, now I try to preserve some of this like unexpected meeting by just
Right,
going for whatever's there.
unexpected. Exciting. That's very exciting to discover something so ordinary, but we can transform it, or we can see something special, divine in whatever material available. Can you show me more? More.
Yeah.
I know
So the
you
next,
have quite a number of painting, ink, and also sculpture.
absolutely. I have quite a few different mediums that I like to work with. I have one more painting. This one is a little more technical.
Wow. Is that
Um,
your country traditional costume?
it has elements of the traditional costume in the silhouette, but my actual inspiration for some of the costume on this character was during the Soviet times, the
Right.
communist military costumes, because it was compulsory at the time for everyone to fight for or train in the military way in the country. I was exploring some of these feelings, of people having to lose some part of their tradition because of the modern
Mm.
times and what it takes, I guess, to preserve. And sometimes, you have to bury the traditions in
Right.
order for them to be remembered for when the more free times
Mm-hmm.
arrive. And this is actually exploring a Dakini like character from the folk tales from my country. There is a creature called Jesternak, which is a woman spirit who lives in the trees in the forests. And Jester means bronze, and Nak means nails. So she has these bronze nails that she hides under a big coat. In a lot of folk tales, when there's hunters or some kind of people who come into the forest with intention to harm the animals and to kind of move through it, she's the guardian who appears and tries to take their guard off by appearing as this beautiful girl, but then actually has these nails and sharp teeth and can get rid of the danger to the
Wow.
forest.
Wow, thank you for sharing. So you grown up by listening to or reading those stories, folk tales?
I would say, yeah, I know some of the folk tales because we keep them, but actually some of these were hard to record because there was not a lot of writing
Mm.
from the times of the traditional tales. So I'm finding out a lot about them by explorers from other countries who came to kind of do anthropology and this kind of expedition to my country and wrote down the things that there. And so it's interesting for me also the levels of interpretation that happen. Maybe something is
Right.
lost or they add something and take away something. So everything is always changing. There's a surprise element.
Right. The title of this painting is Undergrowth. Can you tell me a little bit about that title and the significance of? I feel very important painting this one. Something very special. Each painting is very special, but can you tell us more about this?
Of course. So, undergrowth, to my understanding, is kind of the part of the forest that's closest to the floor. It's kind of has to really adapt to not receiving as much sunlight as the taller trees up in the canopy. Yeah, this is very close to my heart, exploring some of this history with the idea of, something that has to hide and move in the shadow in order to reach towards the light. That's why there's like two sources of light in this painting. The cool light that's coming down from the moon in the top corner of the
Mm-hmm.
painting,
Mm-hmm.
and then this upside down kind of Jisternak Dakini figure whose head is on fire and it's illuminating
Oh.
and bringing some warmth to the girl in the uniform on the
Mm-hmm.
ground. And for this one, I was also exploring while I was visiting Paris, the museums and seeing some of the other world artworks there and like being inspired by the posture, for example, of this sculpture that I saw. And then, kind of working, sorry, this photo is in black and white, but it shows some of the process.
Oh, I
Um,
see. Yeah, so interesting. Beautiful and a little bit sad and lots of feeling I get from this painting.
yeah, and also the hand is, I interpreted the brass nails to be like a vajra as well, a
Oh.
little bit. So that
Mm-hmm.
was part of the inspiration for me. So, some things that look like weapons are actually tools of liberation and compassion. So that was an interesting way of thinking through it for
Interesting.
me.
So your country also have dakinis. In Japan, we also have dakinis, all different forms of dakinis, and they show up in the folk tales. Yeah, often they show up in folk tales.
Can I ask you, in your childhood, do you remember when you first kind of encountered the idea of dakini? How was it exploring for you?
Actually, there is a dakini in Japanese, in the Chinese character dakini. In Japan, traditionally, it's a fox, animal fox, somehow related to fox, animal-headed dakini, I would say. I think there are some speculations because fox is considered to be the tricksters. So dakini is a tricksters or something like that. Not only animal-headed dakinis, but also there are those dakinis who transform their body. Bird became a beautiful female dakinis, then again transform their body into bird. Once they finish the work on this earth, they go somewhere. Yeah, something like that. Always have that sort of stories. And helping sentient beings on the earth, then they leave, disappear. Once we
Wow.
try to grasp her, try to keep her on this earth, then she disappear, dissolve into emptiness.
Wow.
Lots of stories like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it really shows you the reality of this dakini experience that I think almost in every culture there must be
Right, right. Mm.
different stories like this, even from the most ancient texts when I was exploring like the Near East kind of Babylonian culture and very ancient cities, and they created the first writing system. And there's also like these goddesses in that pantheon who are part bird sometimes, and also like sometimes in heaven, sometimes moving under the earth into hell, and always reviving and
Mhm.
appearing, disappearing. It's a yeah,
Right,
very
right.
beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah, today I was working on an animal-headed daiquiris. So many, of course, in Tibet, there are so many different kinds of daiquiris. Of course, daiquiris are everywhere, omnipresence. If we pay attention to those, they show up in our lives.
Thank you. It's
Thank you,
beautiful.
Arima. You have a
Um,
line drawing as well. right?
Yeah, I do have a line drawing that I'm working on right now.
Oh, yes. So this one I requested to you in terms of audience. I just explained. We are studying the new sadhana, a short sadhana of Machi Clapton. Recently we received the Machi Clapton empowerment, the form of Machi Clapton, and that sadhana is a bit different from Machi Clapton in the traditional tanka we see. So we couldn't find anything to begin with, but we have a text. So I asked Arima to draw something according to or based on the text. Voila! Yeah, very nice, Arima. Looking at those text, just even that description is not that detailed.
Of course, the empowerment was such a generous and amazing opportunity for our community to experience with you, and I would like to express my gratitude again. I think it was so transformative for and everyone who was there agrees. And I was sitting there, and of course, possibly present with your words and with what was kind of happening, but at the same time, some part of my formal mind was thinking, I have to I have to try to paint her. She's, maybe asking me to. So I was
You can read my mind.
yeah, exactly. I the next day kind of sat down without any uh previous drawing or something to work from, because of course there's a lot of historical beautiful expressions and images and recordings of Machik, and but this one just seemed to come from a different way, a different, I guess, reflection of her essence. So I just, yeah, I'm hoping to continue this one, maybe add some of the colors that are described, the kind of substances that are on her white skin and the different colors for the
Yeah, red
various
hue.
ornaments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, because I think that's also such a beautiful thing, but I want to, take my time because I'm not quite sure how I'm going to combine the color with the ink and keep it the right mood. But so far, yeah, it's been very, very rewarding to do this image. I don't know. I guess I was thinking maybe it would be more frightful, but looking at the image now, she seems quite still like there's a little bit of a smile.
Yeah, smile,
Perhaps.
mixture of everything, as if she is already moving. She's really alive and vividly moving, and I feel the compassionate aliveness in her.
That
Look
means
at
a lot to
her
hear from you.
legs, and she's dancing, walking, and lots of things she's doing, blowing Simon trumpet. And what's that thing came out? Is a skull? Some gods and demons?
Yeah, that's part I was up here was letting myself be a bit interpretive about some of the guests who would come to
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the shut offering.
Nice.
I'm very glad you feel that it's representative, and I am looking forward to sharing with the community when it feels completed as well.
Just related to this, combining the spirituality or spiritual practice with artistic work, it's so important. Actually, real practitioners, especially tantric practitioner, we do lots of visualization, right? We make use of imaginations. All should be artists. In a sense, we are artists. We are painting in our heart or mind or as a visualization. But your case, you have a talent to put into the paper, and this way, very inspiring, Erima. Hopefully, this helps your spiritual journey as well. That's another question I have for you.
Yeah, I would say it's helped me a lot to combine, what I do in the artistic world now feels very intentional because I have this tradition of practice to rely on. So even if I make something that's not very focused, maybe formally on the kind of Vajrayana imagery, I still feel all the different creative, the five dakinis kind of playing and guiding the process of creation. So I've been very grateful. And I think also I completely agree that all the Vajrayana practitioners have to be artists, because every time we see each other, there is singing, there is melody, there is instruments. And, with the Saddle Body Train, we're always encouraged to stand up and dance. And
Be a crazy or wild, beyond the concept, and those things are important. Look at all those great tantric practitioners historically, Mahasiddhas, very creative. Some are really, unique artists.
Thank you. I always love when you share with us the stories of the great teachers, both ancient and very contemporary and recent, like your teachers, because I can really sense that energy, when we go through day-to-day life and say, oh, I'm good at this, I'm bad at this, I'm an artist, I'm not an artist. It's all
Mm.
becomes in question as soon as you start doing the spiritual work. You realize you're everything and nothing as well. So I think that's a great part of the path, the artistic
Yeah.
part of the path.
And also I feel Dakini is like a bridging us, like really Dakini is spontaneous and very creative, inviting us to be creative. And like each of us has this creative energies, artistic energies. I feel I myself, I'm not really trained in that way, but more and more I feel like I don't know. Just for example, this podcast. Somehow I'm really drawn to do something creative and innovative, not afraid of being beyond the traditional approach to learning something wild. I feel like so Dakini is assisting us, guiding us to express Dharma in a different way, perhaps, or explore Dharma in a more creative way as well.
Yes, I'm so grateful that you started this podcast, because everyone I've showed it to, even, in my family, everyone is very excited, and it changes the appearance of the practitioner has to be this kind of untouchable, serious person. Actually, there is so much beauty and playful element, and I think the various arts is such a good avenue, because when I go to these galleries and museums, I see very small children running up to the images of the Buddha and the Dakinis, and they immediately understand that this is something
Yeah.
exciting and
Mhm.
shimmering. And I can hear them talking, or if I'm drawing at the gallery, they will come up and say, oh, I like this, or this is scary. And it's
Mhm.
available to everybody. I think that's a important thing for
Mhm.
me to remember.
I think especially nowadays it's important in the contemporary world, in the Western world. I think without being caught by the tradition, of course, we honor the traditional approach to learn Dharma, but at the same time, we want to explore different way to learn or more approach to Dharma, because we are different from those ancient Tibetan people as well. These art are very good medium for us to explore Dharma as well. Yeah, thank you, Arima.
Thank you.
I love this one. So I think this itself is good. Then maybe you can explore more on the top of that. If you like, you can add color.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we were talking before, it's nice to document the process, because,
Mm-hmm.
a big colorful painting is nice for a specific altar context, well as a very simpler black and white illustration can always be printed into a text or anything. So I think that's also like there's so much diversity that can be achieved.
Yeah. Even in Tibetan tanka or Tibetan traditional
Mhm.
art has this line drawing itself, as well as a kind of colored version of it.